Nigeria renews efforts to rescue the Chibok girls 3 years after their abduction, but the UN says the government is not doing enough. Also on today's program, Russian prosecutors come knocking as they seek to ban the Jehovah's Witnesses, labeling them an extremist group. Is the Kremlin crushing religious freedom? I'm Imran Garda, and this is the Newsmakers. It's a parent's worst nightmare, sending your daughter off to school, never to have them return. For many in the Nigerian town of Chibok, that horror has been a reality for 3 years. This weekend marks the 3rd anniversary of when Boko Haram snatched nearly 300 schoolgirls, taking them deep into the Sambisa forest. While some have managed to escape or been rescued, almost 200 are still missing. The UN has criticized the government for failing to rescue them and says there's a risk that the fate of the girls will be forgotten. But a spokesman for President Muhammadu Buhari says renewed talks are underway, reportedly with senior members of Boko Haram, to try and secure their release. Will it work? And can the terror group even be negotiated with? Today's newsmakers are the Chibok girls, as we ask if enough's being done to end their captivity. We begin with this report from Fidelis Mba.
It was here at the government secondary school in Chibok that the schoolgirls were kidnapped. The school has remained shut since. 276 girls aged between 16 and 18 were taken. 57 of them managed to escape. Boko Haram freed 21 girls following negotiations with the Nigerian government. 4 of the girls were found. 195 girls are still missing. Since 2014, the militant group has kidnapped about 2,000 girls and boys and displaced millions from their homes. In these crammed quarters on the outskirts of the capital, Abuja, Samuel Yaga and his wife live with their 10 children. They fled Chibok to escape Boko Haram, but their daughter, Sarah, is missing. She was among the girls taken by Boko Haram. Rebecca Yaga holds on to her daughter's photographs, desperate for answers and tired of waiting.
I think that I will see my own daughter too, but I'm happy. And after I hear that my own no there among them, I cry. About 3 days or 4 days, I no get myself. But I go ask myself, say, as before we don't know where they are. But now when they release, maybe small, they will come back.
For Sarah's parents and siblings, life must go on. The Nigerian government says it's in dialogue with Boko Haram's leaders.
We are engaging in negotiations with the leaders of the terrorist groups in the hope that these two would yield, to the freedom for the remaining girls that they are still keeping.
The military has uprooted Boko Haram from some of its strongholds with the support of local vigilantes. But a vigilante leader is unhappy with the delay in rescuing the girls.
When these Chibok girls were adopted, the first place where they kept them, I have the information. I share the information with the government, with the authorities, but nothing has been done at that time. Even the strength of those militants that are guarding the Chibok girls, I was given, and I passed over to them. If we could have acted, we could have rescued them.
Campaign groups are continuing to demand the release of the schoolgirls, and the Yagas and others like them can only hope that the day will come when their daughters return home. Fidelis Mba, the Newsmakers.
Well, joining me now from Nigeria's capital, Abuja, is Baki Shonibari. She's the co-founder of the Bring Back Our Girls campaign. And in London, Temitope Olodo. He's the chair of the Africa Security Forum and a counter-terror expert with a focus on Nigeria and Boko Haram. We also requested an interview with the Nigerian government, but they were unavailable to come on the show, unfortunately. Baki, let me begin with you. 3 years on, it saddens me that we have to have this conversation with around 190 girls still in captivity. Who failed these girls?
Sadly, like you said, we are having to commemorate 3 years since the abduction. We didn't think that we were going to be doing this commemoration of this day. Just a bit of a reminder that 276 girls were abducted, 57 escaped, and we've had 24 back so far, and we still have 195 left. Now, in terms of responsibility of who should return these girls, we've insisted that it's the government of Nigeria that is supposed to bring together the relevant stakeholders, including the international community, to ensure that efforts are hastened up so that our girls can come back. Sadly, we've not seen anything like that, and that's why we are here today.
Baki, the latest coming in was that the government is in constant touch through negotiations, through local intelligence, to secure the release of the remaining girls and other abducted persons unharmed. That's what President Muhammadu Buhari said in a statement. And of course, the spokesman, the president's spokesperson, also saying there are ongoing negotiations with third parties and senior members of Boko Haram. Does any of that encourage you?
It gives a bit of encouragement to the extent that we've heard this severally, and having heard this severally, we had 24 of our girls back. But when we look at the pace at which we are moving since the last 3 years, only 21 girls had actually been recovered or negotiated for and returned by the Nigerian government. It has taken us 3 years, to get to this point. So while it is a bit of encouragement, it puts on the table the question of how long do we have to stay or wait for another set of girls to be brought back. I was with the Vice President 2 nights ago, and I actually asked this question as well, what's going on regarding our girls? And he reiterated the fact that negotiations are ongoing. But the truth of the matter is, until these negotiations yield results and we can have our girls back, then what is being done is never sufficient.
Tommy Topi, has the government failed these girls? Do you agree with Baki?
I think I have to agree. The challenge we have here is that it's taking the government an average of 7 girls per year. Now, if we go by that and divide that by 7 divided by 190 girls, we're going to have a serious challenge in our hands. And the reason is because the methodology adopted by the government is completely ineffective in addressing this issue. I've been one of those that have called for a more comprehensive and effective stakeholders that will look at the issue.
So how does that work? Tell me one thing that will be different.
One thing that will be different, one of the things I've always argued for, is that some of the girls that have been involved in any attack, if the DNA of the families involved have been taken and matched against some of the girls or some of the girls that have been killed, it's possible that they might have some result in time to distinguish between girls that have been picked up and girls that have not been picked up. One of the challenges that we have is that the girls that have been released so far, some of them have actually come out with narrative or information that suggests that some people within the community knew that these girls were kept within the metropolitan community of Borno State. Now, there is no investigation to follow this up. A sitting senator once said that one or two of the girls was in charge. These things were not followed up. We have similar cases in the UK here, where even with the McCain, the Metropolitan Police traveled as far as to Portugal to follow up leads. We've not seen anything like that. We've not seen Nigerian authorities actually going in and following up cases. And that is the reason why I honestly believe that they've not been doing the proper job, because the police have responsibility and have been trained in doing this kind of investigation. But the military do not have the capacity to deliver this. Right. The military are good in other work, but not in adoption cases.
Right. Let me ask Baki, isn't the government caught between a rock and a hard place in many ways? So, okay, you have the 21 who were released through negotiations that involved third parties, the Red Cross, the Swiss government, and others. You have that. But on the other hand, you have this brutal terror group, Boko Haram. I mean, they kill more people, even more sort of per capita than ISIS, than Daesh around the world. there needs to be, I guess, a defeat for Boko Haram in order to truly liberate those girls. But that also risks a massacre. You don't want those girls massacred because they're in the care of Boko Haram. Do you understand that the government has to thread a very fine needle here?
You know, one thing we've maintained consistently in the course of this advocacy is that there are three options with which we could have our girls back. There is the military option, there is the negotiation option, and then there is the combination of both, where the military is acting, and then we have also a negotiated effort ongoing. But when we look at 8 years so far, bearing in mind that we've had Boko Haram in Nigeria and the neighboring countries of Niger, Chad, and Cameroon, lingering for 8 years, it puts on the table the question of sufficiency of our equipment to fight the scale of insurgency. It puts on the table also whether our military is equipped enough mentally, technically, to be able to defeat this insurgent group. So when we put that on the table and look at also the fact that the very beginning of this abduction, where the former president, Goodluck Jonathan, took 18 days before constituting a fact-finding committee. And even before then, there was denial of the fact that the girls were abducted. Having acknowledged that the girls were abducted, they came and lied to us that the girls had been found except for 8. And then this time of rigmarole and politicization of the issue gave the insurgent group a leeway to advance, so much so that it has become very difficult. Experts like Temitokpe over there in the UK have said to us that 48 hours is critical, enough to ensure that any abduction case tilts towards success or failure. But we lost all of that at the beginning. So it's, again, back to whether our military can actually wage this war towards getting our girls back. Right. Don't forget also that we've had several abductees returned back by our military. But because of the hostage value of the Chibok girls, we're not going to get them back the way other hostages will be brought back. It's on the table that their hostage value is really high, and the insurgents are protecting them, using them to negotiate for money, using them to negotiate for arms, using them to negotiate for release of some of their men. So we understand the peculiarity of the insurgency that we're dealing with. But are we saying that, bearing in mind that we want to keep the girls alive, we don't have the sophistication, the military sophistication to ensure that these girls are militarily brought back? If our answer to that is no, then it means that we really have to face the negotiation as an option and ensure that these girls are brought back before we launch a clear-out military action on the insurgents. Temitope,
the last time I spoke to you, President Buhari said Boko Haram was, quote, on the run. I think it was around Christmas time, if I'm not mistaken. Does that sound ridiculous now?
No, it doesn't. I think technically Boko Haram has been degraded. I think the challenge that we have here is that we have 3 girls who were accidentally found. And we've got 195 girls, just like Buki is saying, that are still outstanding that we need to look for. I think the difficulty and what we need really to do here is to have a group that is actually concentrating on looking for the girls, following up information, and making sure that things are done the way they're done, taking the eyes and the teeth. If we don't do that, we're going to have a serious challenge. And I think it's important to tell our viewers that when the 21 girls were, when the negotiation for 21 girls were done, there was optimism that 83 girls from the same camp will be rescued through negotiation. But there is a funny story here, because we found out afterwards that when the Nigerian government got to ground zero, we were told that one of the leaders of Boko Haram, who was involved in that negotiation, was captured. We don't have more information about his capture, and we don't have more information about where the girls were. Because if what happened is that when they got the 21 girls, they got them because they knew where the other 83 were, and they went after that, and it's failed, then we need government to come out and really tell us what really happened, because the 83 girls were promised shortly after, before they got to ground zero. Was it a miscalculation by the government, or is somebody not telling us the truth?
Yeah, there is a dense fog of information and misinformation. Baki, in terms of international awareness, now a couple years ago, we had the former First Lady, Michelle Obama, holding up that sign, "Bring back our girls." The same as what we're reading on your pen right now, "Bring back our girls." It seemed to be spoken about in the Twitter sphere, on Facebook and elsewhere. Politicians were talking about it. Do you feel let down that you've sort of gone through the news cycle now and people have become apathetic and have moved on from this cause? It's not a very exciting cause for people to care about anymore?
At the beginning of the campaign, when we had the likes of Michelle Obama joined in the advocacy and carried the placard, "Bring back our girls," and several celebrities across the world also joined in. It seemed like the coolest thing to do at the time. I mean, everyone just wanted to carry the placard, perhaps to validate their humanity, perhaps to tell the world that they are also concerned about innocent girls, perhaps to have something to show to their children that at some point they stood up for innocent girls. But the test of our humanity actually lies in its consistency. It is not just about doing something one-off. It is about staying on the issue like we are doing, like we are conversing about it, ensuring it is placed on the front burner, and ensuring that until these girls have got back, our work is not yet done. So do I feel let down? Yes. Understandably also, the media also shifted away from this whole conversation until we have milestone days, until we have critical events, until perhaps another girl walks out or another girl escapes. We don't have this thing. So it seems the world moves in the direction that the media moves to. So it's a combination of several efforts. When the media is not shining its spotlight on the issue that is going on, it seems everyone just moves on. So in terms of feeling let down, I'm not the only one that feels let down by the international community, especially the Chibok community. I go to Chibok, and one would think that with a community that has enjoyed that spotlight and global attention, so much will be going on in that community. Schools are still dilapidated. The school where the girls were abducted from, yes, is the responsibility of the government, is yet to be renovated. Senior secondary school is not going on in Chibok as I speak to you, and several other things. So yes, there is need to make sure that everyone that was involved in it within those first 3 to 6 months comes back on the front burner, and it is to say that until these girls come back, our work is not yet done.
Mm-hmm. Very powerful, Baki. The test of our humanity lies in its consistency. Thank you so much for sharing that, and it's been a pleasure having both of you on the program, Baki Shonibari and Temitope Olodo. Thanks again. Religious expression in Russia flourished after the collapse of the Soviet Union and the end of state-enforced atheism. But now there are fears religious freedom is once again under assault. Russia's Supreme Court is hearing a request to label Jehovah's Witnesses an extremist organization. Prosecutors call the group a sect that indoctrinates people, splits families, and incites hatred. But for a group that's known for its pacifism, rights groups say it's a worrying crackdown. Yvette McCullough explains.
Jehovah's Witnesses is a Christian-based movement founded in the United States in the 1870s. Witnesses take most of the Bible literally and are known for their door-to-door preaching, refusal to perform military service, salute national flags, or accept blood transfusions. They have frequently faced prosecution by governments, including the former Soviet Union. If the ruling passes, the group will be outlawed, all its property seized, and its 175,000 active believers in Russia could be criminally prosecuted. Not only that, Jehovah's Witnesses would have the same legal status as Daesh. In 2006, Russia changed its legal definition of extremism from inciting violence or hatred to the incitement of religious discord. Authorities say witnesses' pamphlets incite hatred, and the group undermines respect for other religions. Russia is predominantly made up of Russian Orthodox Christians. Rights groups say this case is part of an official repressive campaign against Jehovah's Witnesses and is part of a wider threat to religious freedom in Russia. Yvette McCullough, The Newsmakers.
Well, joining me now in the studio is Ercüment Kadim. He's a spokesperson for the Jehovah's Witnesses. Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Thank you.
So those who want you banned in Russia consider you a mind control cult. They say you prevent members from furthering their education, from starting a family, from being free. How do you respond to that?
Well, this has been an accusation already made by the Russian authorities, and because of that, in year 2004, the community of Jehovah's Witnesses in Moscow was banned. And after exhausting the legal remedies in Russia, Jehovah's Witnesses in Russia took the issue to the European Court of Human Rights. And in 2010, European Court of Human Rights made a judgment that such an allegation has no legitimate reason. And things like making personal decisions regarding education and about health reasons is all part of freedom of religion and freedom of expressions of their beliefs. So even the European Court of Human Rights found that these allegations had no legitimate reason, and therefore they judged and they verdicted that the Russian government has to pay compensation to the Jehovah's Witnesses in Russia.
You don't want political power. I mean, you don't get involved in politics. So
No.
why are they coming after you?
That's a good question. As already described in the clip that you already displayed, the wording has changed regarding extremism. And there is a law in Russia, it's called counteracting extremist activity. And now it's nothing to do with the violent act, but if it is sensed that there is a kind of intolerance to any other religion, then it can be considered as extremist. And it goes back to 2008 in Rostov, in Russia. The prosecutor office asked for a study, and they said, please search literatures of Jehovah's Witnesses. And they found out that, in fact, Jehovah's Witnesses never have a hostile thinking towards or against anyone. But they found out that the study, it revealed that there is a potential that it can undermine the respect towards the other religions. And the court in Rostov focused on this finding, and then they said, well, it fits into this amended definition of extremism, and therefore they declared 34 publications or literatures of Jehovah's Witnesses as extremist.
Do you respect other religions?
Of course we do.
Right.
Of course we do.
This is interesting because in Russia at the moment there seems to be a bit of a revival of religion, of the Orthodox Church. And that seems to be coming closer together with the state. So society seems to be getting more religious or more proud of its religion, but you just don't fit that narrative. Tell me why.
It's a good question. And I think it's not only the Jehovah's Witnesses do not fit into that. All the religious minorities have the same problem. It's not our personal observance. In fact, the international media outlets say that, of course, right now there's a pressure on the local community of Jehovah's Witnesses, but it's a threat for all the other religious minorities. But that connection that you referred is made by the, again, international media outlets between the Orthodox Church and the government.
The president, the patriarch, the church and the state, right? We're seeing this sort of get stronger.
Well, that's something observed by the international media outlets, like you pointed out. And therefore, this pressure is now being put on Jehovah's Witnesses and on other religious minorities.
Let me maybe then pose another theory.
Please.
Is this maybe because you're perceived as Western and not from the soil of Russia? You're an American influence, an American injection into their society.
Sometimes we face this idea, but as a matter of fact, Jehovah's Witnesses are around the world in 240 lands and countries. So Jehovah's Witnesses is not associated with any special country. In fact, the holy book that Jehovah's Witnesses believe in is Bible, was written in Middle East, has nothing to do with the Western world. So there is such a misperception, but it has no real basis.
Yeah, and I'm looking at what might happen as they talk of breaches of the law on counteracting extremist activities. Now, the ministry has asked to recognize the organization and its 395 local branches in Russia as extremists, ban your activity, seize your property.
True.
So, I mean, this is a mega threat.
It is.
What are you planning to do in response to that?
It's good. As usual, Jehovah's Witnesses always try to apply the legal remedies. So they always go to the courts in Russia because Jehovah's Witnesses are well known for law-abiding or obeying the laws. So they try to reason to the Russian laws. In fact, the Constitution of Russia respects freedom of religion and freedom of expression and freedom of association. Therefore, just Jehovah's Witnesses right now try to argue with the authorities that, well, Jehovah's Witnesses are just obeying the laws and they are enjoying the freedom, in fact, granted by the Russian Constitution. So that's the reasoning now. So they are not doing something which is not part of the Constitution. They are enjoying the freedom which other religious minorities or mainstream religions enjoy already.
Ercüment Kadim, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that's all for this edition of the Newsmakers with me, Imran Garta. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.